the International Pentecostal Holiness Church, where the briefing is set to take place as the battle for power continues. Let's take you live to those proceedings.
Condolences to all the children of IPHC, our father's children, and also condolences to the family of our late comforter M.G. Modise for the passing of our mother Mem Masichaba. And would like to wish our sincere condolences to them, heartfelt, he says, and we are with them in prayer. And again, we would like to let them know that as our Father has taught us, death is nothing but a cradle that carries us back to our Maker. And so too, we've been taught that so in those ways, we would like to say homotehang and be comforted. Okay, without any further ado, I'm going to take you back to Priest Ndala, who's going to inform you or do the proceedings of the day. Thank you very much. Priest Ndala, you might take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Priest Mane. Thank you very much. Welcome to the members of the media who are present here this morning. We really appreciate your valuable time to come to hear what we wish to share with the nation under the circumstances that happened in the last 4 weeks. So we are grateful that you are here. I, at the same time, take this opportunity and warmly greet all the children of our Father and also the viewers at home, respectively. The reason we are having this briefing or this media conference is to put the context and the reality under which the IPHC in Jerusalem exists and the way forward following the mediation process instituted by the CRL Commission. The purpose of this media briefing is to set the record straight and inform the South African public across the length and breadth of this country and the SADC region where we have presence, with the clarity of thought on who we are as the IPHC in Jerusalem and the context and the reality under which we exist. Of course, this followed an unfortunate and gruesome incident of the 11th July in Zuurbekom, where 5 lives were lost, and media reports about the IPHC in Jerusalem being put in the spotlight of being the perpetrators of violence in the church, and a faction that is vying to hijack IPHC. This is a misconception and a mischievous play that this media briefing wished to dispel. We are not going to talk about the event as the matter is under the police investigation and currently in the court of law. Suffice to note that those who were arrested on the day are out on bail. We will allow the courts and the judicial process to take their own course in this matter. It is worth mentioning that following the incident, we wrote to the CRL Commission expressing our commitment to end the violence in our church and advocate for peace, love, and reconciliation, as well as forgiveness. The mediation process took place on the 22nd to the 24th of July. We have pronounced on our participation to the media process, and we wish to still reiterate our relentless commitment to the process and request for peace, reconciliation, tolerance, unity among all church members, irrespective of the faction they belong to. To this effect, we also wish to happily report that our commitment is not a talk. We have taken the first step in demonstrating our effort and progress to create peace among different factions that are willing to do likewise. We will submit our report to the CRL Commission on this positive step in due course, and the public will know about it officially. However, one thing and a particular important matter that we wish to express our disappointment on is that the Ministry of Police, while Mr. Begikele committed to meet all the parties concerned as articulated in a statement issued following the visit to the Zuurbekom faction, he is yet to meet with the leadership at IPHC in Jerusalem a month after visiting the Zuurbekom faction. The IPHC in Zuurbekom is not representative of the IPHC in its entirety. It is just one faction in the bigger scheme of the church. We want to express our disappointment with the Ministry of Police in this regard, and this, to us, appears to suggest that the ministry favors one faction over the other. We hope that the Ministry of Police would not want this perception to linger and become a reality that is unnecessary. And we humbly appeal that an opportunity rendered to the IPHC in Zuurbekom by the Ministry of Police is rendered to the IPHC in Jerusalem. Where does IPHC in Jerusalem feature in the bigger scheme of the International Pentecostal Holiness Church? And as I indicated earlier, obviously, in the events that happened in the last 4 weeks, we have been painted as a group that cropped up all of a sudden and willing or wishing to hijack IPHC. Here's the genesis of where IPHC in Jerusalem is in the bigger scheme of the IPHC. Upon the passing of His Grace Comforter M.G. Modise in February 2016, Mr. Tsepiso Modise, one of the sons of the Comforter, wanted to be ordained as the leader of the IPHC. Unfortunately, the congregation and elders disagreed, and his ordainment, for reasons that we will not mention here, for respect and adherence to the church doctrines and practices, which all other factions are familiar with. Being aggrieved by the aforesaid action of not being ordained as the Comforter's successor, Mr. Tsepiso Modise launched an application at the North Gauteng High Court, demanding the court to declare him as the leader of IPHC. In the interim, while the case was ongoing, he broke away from IPHC and moved to Springs together with his family, including his younger brother, Mr. Leonard Modise, and some of the congregants. During this period and throughout the court proceedings, Mr. Tsepiso Modise was being supported by his younger brother, Mr. Leonard Modise, as the rightful successor to His Grace Comforter M.G. Modise. This is attested by an affidavit deposed to by Mr. Leonard Modise to this effect. A video footage during a church service at Springs and a voice note that where Mr. Leonard Modise agree and confirm that his brother is the one that should take the throne as the spiritual leader of the IPHC is part of this media pack. The matter was and remained opposed by the IPHC, and it's still pending. In the period between February 2016 and 22 November 2016, the church operations were managed and led by the Executive Committee, initially led by Priest Abel Wesi, whom already you know, succeeded later by subsequent priests necessitated by circumstances allowing at the time. Priest Abel Wesi was a lead representative in several matters of litigation during this period by virtue of being the chairperson of EXCO at the time, an EXCO that was residing at the headquarters in Zuurbekom, way before he defected and joined the group that is led by Mr. Leonard Modise right now. And the reason for his lead participation at that stage was his background in the legal field. Priest Abel Wesi, in fact, deposed to an affidavit for the IPHC case against Mr. Tsepiso Modise, supported by his younger brother, Mr. Leonard Modise. The affidavit is attached for your reference. On the 22nd November 2016, Judge Jody Kolapen made an interim order and instructed the elders and priests of IPHC, as per the Constitution, to hold a special general meeting to consider matters at hand and any other matter the SGM deemed necessary, including the election of the Church Council. The preparation of the SGM was assigned to the Joint Executive Committee of Mr. Tsepiso Modise's breakaway and the IPHC at the time, led by the Council and the Executive Committee. The Joint Executive Committee comprised of 4 members aside. The judge ordered that both the IPHC and breakaway group led by Mr. Tsepiso Modise, supported by his younger brother, must be in attendance. On the 12th of January 2017, a special meeting was held at Silo in Zuurbekom. At the said meeting, 650 priests, this must be noted, 650 priests attended on behalf of IPHC. We will get at the later stage as who this IPHC we keep referring to is. The breakaway group sent a communique with the names of 50 priests that made up a proxy of 700 priests as their members, and they requested that the meeting may proceed in their absence. We have a letter to that effect. They further confirmed that they will accept and be bound by the outcome of the meeting. A 30-member council was elected at the SGM, being one of the matters that the SGM considered or deemed significant to transact on the day. At this time, the elected council was entrusted with the governance and leadership of the church from the church headquarters at Silo in Zuurbekom. At the same time, the very same church council safeguarded the church properties at Silo in Zuurbekom, Jerusalem in Rabukala, west of Pretoria, Mount Zion and Marinshakel, the two properties in Cape Town, Zone 10 in Meadowlands, Nazareth in Limotwane, Northwest Province. For many years, Jerusalem was regarded as the headquarters of IPHC until Silo was built in 1991. At this point, we wish to unequivocally and categorically articulate that our father, his great successor, N.G. Sandlana, was nowhere involved in the matters of the church, let alone the leadership battle. Now we come to the emergence of BGP so that you put together a picture of why initially we referred to IPHC and the breakaway led by Mr. Tsepiso Modise, and why now we have three factions. Because from the beginning of 2016 towards the end of 2016, it was only two factions. In March 2017, the second breakaway group or movement was formed, calling themselves BGP, which stands for Bring God Back. That group was led by Mr. Leonard Modise. As I said earlier, at that time already, he had left the church supporting his brother. Its majority followers, this BGP group, consisted and still consists mainly of the IPHC youth congregation that defected upon its formation. It is this BGP group that got involved and started disruptions of church services and assaulted church members at various IPHC branches countrywide with a remarkable footprint in Limpopo. They projected unruly and disrespectful behavior to the elders and the entire congregation as they were carrying out these unbecoming and disgraceful acts of hooliganism. As a result, the BGP group became responsible for the creation of all the negative perception, and our church has at all material times preached and is still preaching the message of love and peace. What is also of great concern to us and still do is that this BGP movement started to don T-shirts and caps with an emblem or logo of twin red boxing gloves. This pair of red gloves would often be associated and accompanied by a slogan of Sipula. Those of you who speak Sotho, you may be familiar with this word. It's a Sotho word meaning to root out. In the boxing fraternity, it is a reference to an uppercut, an ascription to one of the blows or punches by a boxer. To us, this was suggestive that the BGPs are a movement characterized by a spirit of war and fighting. An exhibit to this effect is part of the media pack. Another disturbing issue is the way the consecrated grounds of Silo are being diluted by this BGP group with activities that are unreligious, such as car spinning, bike rides, racing and festival, occasions that have never happened on the holy grounds of Silo. The video footages are attached as part of the media pack. Now, coming to the statement that we believe are devoid of truth and honesty by this BGP movement led by Mr. Leonard Modise. We wish to emphasize and reiterate that contrary to the statement being made by the BGPs in all sorts of media about our father, his great successor, N.G. Sandlana, he was not involved in the matters of the church, let alone that of leadership contestation during the period when BGPs were invading and disrupting peace and church services in branches as alluded to above. It is therefore a fallacy that our father is at the center of the violence and conflicts ripping our church apart. Violence started in the first half of 2016. It's not a new phenomenon, where a church member was killed in an incident at the Mabopane branch in Pretoria. That case is still ongoing in the court of law. We do not want to mention names here, but we invite you, media, to access court documents and see who the parties to that case are. You will be shocked. We challenge you to come back and report to the public what you discovered. And obviously this will dispel this assertion that our father is the one who's perpetrating violence in the IPHC. Many other unfortunate incidents happened, as well as articulated below, way before our father, Morena Sandlana, emerged as a figure in the church leadership dispute. So, this assertion of saying our father is the perpetrator is devoid of truth. In June 2019, Mr. Leonard Modise and his followers attempted to host a church service at Mount Zion in Cape Town, knowing well that they were not supposed to go, as they had not held a pilgrimage there since their formation 3 years prior. The only members or congregation that held the 2 annual pilgrimages in June and September for 3 years consecutively since June 2016 is the IPHC in Jerusalem. At that time, the congregation in Jerusalem that you know of today as a splinter group, 99.9% of the congregation in Jerusalem was congregating in Zuurbekom from 2016 up to October 2018. We will clarify as to why the IPHC in Jerusalem ended up in Jerusalem and not remaining in Zuurbekom. So to put it clear that this assertion and notion that the IPHC in Jerusalem is just a splinter group that cropped up somewhere and want to hijack the IPHC is not true. We will clearly articulate and show you why the Jerusalem congregation ended up in Jerusalem. Realizing this possible breach of the BGB group, hosting a pilgrimage at Mount Zion in Cape Town, our church council approached the Western Cape High Court and obtained an interdict. However, Mr. Leonard Modise and his followers faked a court order of that interdict and actually faked a court order that supposedly allowed them to hold a church service, and they forcefully entered Mount Zion and they held a service on the 28th of June 2019. That fake court order is attached as part of this media pack. In the court order issued by Honorable Justice Desai, the court order I'm referring to, there's a case number there, among others stipulated that the fourth respondent of that court order was the Minister of Police. He was ordered to report back to the court before 31 July 2019 on the criminal investigations pertaining to the fraudulent order. The court order in this regard is herewith attached also. To date, we do not know what happened to that fraudulent criminal investigation in that regard. The BGPs, through their spokesperson and convener of the Executive Council, Priest A.B.L. Wesi, asserted recently in the media that it is the modus operandi of our father to acquire properties of the church by measure of force. They mentioned the church farms in Kanana, in Varambats, and our church facility in Cape Town, Mount Zion. We wish to dismiss this notion with the strongest terms. Both properties were acquired by a successful contestation of the matters in court. The Western Cape High Court I referred to and the Limpopo High Court ruled on the matter respectively, and orders issued in this regard were in our favor. Both court orders are in the pack, in the media pack. So here what we're trying to do is to demonstrate that we are not perpetuating lies and truth about the matters of the church. Hence we keep referring you to the facts in terms of documents that we have available at our disposal. We wish to put it on record that while our father, his great successor, M.G. Sandlana, ascended to the throne through a process that we will briefly describe below, has never fought for and declared himself the comforter. It was the priests that resolved to regard and recognize our father as the successor for reasons that we will share. He never put himself forward for the position of the comforter. Mr. Tsepiso Modise and Mr. Leonard Modise are the ones that have come forward and declared themselves comforter. That information can be accessed through the Code of Laws. We have video footages in actual fact that shows that Leonard Modise declared himself a comforter and Mr. Tsepiso Modise too. Now we're coming to the invasion and disruption of the branches. Now this demonstrates that what you saw on the 11th of July, it doesn't start now. It started 4 years ago. For the better part of 2017, since the formation of the PGP movement in March of the same year, various incidences occurred perpetrated by the PGP group. Attached herewith is a Limpopo court order ordering against the PGP movement with the invasion and disruption of branches, more so in Limpopo. We have also attached footage and evidence showing what has happened to those branches or in that regard. We have also attached a number of cases that were open by the church at the time. And at that time, like I said, all this happened while the congregation in Jerusalem was still, and I emphasize, 99.9% of the congregation in Jerusalem presently were congregating in Zuurbekom at the time. Events leading to the ambush of church members on the 1st November 2018. On the 16th October 2018, the council resolved that Mr. M.G. Sandlana is the rightful successor of the late Comforter M.G. Modise. Now, this is the council. He never said, I'm the one and I want to put my name forward. That happened after careful consideration of all material facts and with emphasis, spiritual observations, which I need not mention here, were placed before them and scrutinized. Prior to the resolution of the 16th October 2018, in about August 2018, now we are coming to a point that the Zuurbekom faction are said to that we need to produce. And we want to clear this. A rumor passed around that there was a person rumored to be another son of Comforter M.G. Modise, and that person has a will and DVD. And this, of course, happened to be Ntate Sandlana. The then church council pursued this matter rigorously and reported to the meetings of elders and congregation regularly. Indeed, because this was a rumor, the council and the congregants wanted to see the will and DVD. While this was being pursued, the council resolved to meet Ntate Sandlana. The council, as an initial step, delegated 4 members of the executive committee then to meet him. After meeting him, after what they saw, after what they heard from this person, which is Ntate Sandlana in this case, they reported back to the council, the elders and the congregation. It was following a report from these 4 committee members delegated by the council that the then church council resolved to meet him. We have a 30-member church council. So 27 of that member church council at the time went to meet Ntate Sandlana. They met him on the 19th September 2018 in the very same boardroom that we are sitting at now. So that's where the council met Ntate Sandlana. And the very same 27-member council corroborated what the delegated 4 EXCO members saw and heard before. Upon their return, they reported back to the elders and the congregants. Basically, the structure of the church in terms of its governance and operations, we have the church, we've got the comforter, we've got the church council, we've got then the EXCO, and then we've got what we call the meeting of the elders. Now is all the priests of the IPHC. That's the meeting of the elders. Upon their return, they reported back to the elders and congregants. Following this report, the entire congregation was happy to recognize Ntate Sandlana as the successor, with emphasis now, with or without the rumored will or DVD. This must be noted and be emphasized. This notion that the children of our father were misled because of a DVD or a will are not true. 100% of the congregants in Jerusalem at the moment, we don't want to see the will or DVD. You know why? Because we have seen that will and DVD with our own eyes in 3 or 4 occasions of a spiritual function that Ntate Sandlana performed. To us, that is the will and DVD. We don't want to see any other form of will or DVD. So the spiritual function that Ntate Sandlana performed to us is the will and DVD of God. Just before this resolution was adopted, Mamuhau, Comforter M.G. Modise's second wife, approached her legal team and wrote a letter to the then church council and instructed that the church should not be involved in the will and DVD issue, as that matter is a family matter. The church council obliged with humility and respect to the family request, and that is where we left the issue of will and DVD. So we can't go back to the will and DVD because we submitted with respect and humility to the request of the family that this is a family matter, so therefore it can't come to church. That is why we have no matter to deal with as the church in terms of a DVD and a will. It's a family matter. Surprisingly now, the Zuurbekom faction, through their spokesperson, Priest A.B. Elwesi, has said that a will and DVD must be produced. And yet, they claim to be in a position of a letter from the then church lawyer expressing that there was no will and DVD. Now, there's a contradiction here. Why will you request a will and DVD when you are in a position of a letter that says there's no will and DVD? So clearly there's a contradiction there. The big question is, how can you produce something that is not there according to the letter in their position? And when the family said we should not be involved in a family matter. In response to this issue from our side now, we appeal that the Zuurbekom faction must approach the executors of Comforter M.G. Modise's estate as they are applicants in court on this matter of will and DVD. Let them pursue a legal process for this to be done, as the process is already instituted early in 2019. This goes the same with the paternity test being demanded. This process started last year already, and let it be pursued through that process. It does not help for Zuurbekom faction to go to the media and request these particulars from us when a formal process is already instituted. Let the process be formally exhausted in that manner. The resolution for the ordination of Ntate Sandlana was confirmed by the elders in a meeting held on the 25th October that was attended by 482 priests. Now this is October 25th. The congregation in Jerusalem presently were congregating in Zuurbekom. So the priests at that meeting resolved and confirmed that Mr. Sandlana should ascend the throne. The elders subsequently instructed the church council to prepare for the inauguration of Mr. Sandlana as the new leader of IPHC on the 3rd November 2018 at Silo in Zuurbekom. Upon hearing this news, now I want you to listen carefully here. Upon hearing the news of the inauguration of the successor, the BGP group, led by Mr. Leonard Modise, hijacked and invaded Silo in the early morning hours of the 27th October 2018, with the clear intention of disrupting the feast of the 3rd November of ordinating Ntate Sandlana as the successor. So at that time, this BGP movement, led by Mr. Leonard Modise, was congregating in Lenasia at a workshop. Since their formation, 3 years later, they were congregating in Lenasia. They were not at Zuurbekom. They were not there. Since the passing of Comforter M.G. Modise in 2016, they were not congregating in Zuurbekom. They came to Zuurbekom on the 27th October 2018 after disrupting, or rather after invading Silo in the early hours of that morning. On that day, Mr. Leonard Modise, known to his followers as Morena Jacobo, proclaimed himself as the leader of IPHC and occupied the throne of grace, which is exclusively reserved for our Comforter, without him being properly inaugurated by neither the elders nor the church council. On Monday, the 29th October 2018, now already 2-3 days later after the illegally occupied Zuurbekom, a case of invasion and unlawful occupation of Silo was opened with the Western Area Police Station. That is public information. It can be accessed anytime. Nothing came out of it in terms of arrest and attempt to evict the illegal occupation by the BGBs. As you would know, the long arm of the law is long. They've been there. Hence, at the moment, it appears that the BGBs or the Zuurbekom faction has been occupying Zuurbekom from 2016, which is not true. They occupied that place in the manner that I've briefly described on the 27th October 2019. On Monday, the 29th October 2018, a case of invasion and unlawful occupation of Silo was opened with the Western Police Station. Nothing came out of it. Oh, my apologies, I've gone through this. They proceeded during the same period to invade the church farm in Kanana Varampat. This is after they've occupied Silo, and then they went and invaded Jerusalem 2 on Monday, the 28th of October 2018. Realizing that Silo has been invaded, the council considered Jerusalem. Now, this is where you must note how we, as the Jerusalem congregation or IPHC in Jerusalem, ended up in Jerusalem. Realizing that Silo has been invaded, the council considered Jerusalem as the venue for ordainment of our Father. However, the BGP members illegally occupied Jerusalem as well until 31st October 2018, when we sought the help of the police to evict them on the same day. They proceeded during the same period to invade the church farm in Kanana Varampats. During this invasion, our members were shot at and some got severe body harm. One of our members is still living with bullets riddled in his bones and one other leg amputated. On the 1st November 2018, some members of IPHC went to Silo to prepare for the inauguration of our Father on the 3rd of November 2018. Unfortunately, these members were ambushed, assaulted and shot at with live ammunition and malicious damage to property done by the PGP group before they could enter the church premises at Silo. A case once again was opened with the South African Police Services at Western Area against PGP members who ambushed the children of our Father. That event was in the news, as the event of the 11th July was in the news. It is primarily for the incident of the 1st November 2018 that the Church Council resolved to move the ordination of successor MG Sandlana, scheduled for the 3rd November, from Silo to Jerusalem in order to avoid further disruption and bloodshed by Jacobo and the PGP group, because the IPHC is for love, peace, and is against violence. Going through towards my conclusion. Spiritually, the church is the body of Christ. Physically, the church, now buildings, other properties, and any other form of physical nature belong to the members of the church as a community. IPHC is a registered non-profit organization incorporated in accordance with the laws and regulation governing the church as an institution. This we want to emphasize. It has directors entrusted with fiduciary duties and duty to care for the best interest of the members. As an NPO and a public benefit organization, the organization is prohibited from distributing profits for the benefit of any single member or director. It is our belief in the thought and creed in this philosophy that the IPHC as an organization is not a family church,